There are a few audiobooks that I have in my library from Audible that I revisit every couple of years, maybe some every couple of months, depending on how I'm feeling. But one of them that I definitely visit every couple of years is A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And it's one of those books that is pretty short, and it really just hit home in so many ways and helps me ground back into some beliefs and practices and energy that I like to carry forward in my life. And one of my favorite quotes, you may or may not know it, but I'll just read a little bit of it right now because I love it that much. And it is, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be?" The quote goes on a little bit, but because I know that you want to get to the episode, I will leave it there. It's definitely a book to check out on Audible. Audible is one of the sponsors for my podcast, and I couldn't be more excited about it because I use Audible, and I have used Audible for many, many years. So here's to building your little Audible library and having the books there that you can just pop on whenever you need to have a little reminder of who you really are and how incredible you really are, and how to allow yourself to just be that person. And hopefully you find some of those messages here on this podcast as well. So you can follow the link in my bio in the descriptions for Audible for a free 30-day free trial. And I don't think you'll ever look back from there. It's been a life-changing thing to have an Audible subscription for so many years, and I have an incredible library that I love and cherish. So I hope you find your books as well. And on to the episode.
Hello, friends. This is Greta Hotmer. This is a thought experiment called Life. It's a podcast for multi-passionate creatives living unconventional lives. This does not fit into a niche. I will definitely cover lots of topics. If you don't fit into a niche, you probably found a good spot. I shared my story of living with chronic Lyme disease for about 22 years the other day, and there's just little pieces that I wanted to kind of pull apart in terms of the lessons that come with things, and if they resonate with you, that is my joy to pass it along. I really believe in sharing our stories because that's how we know we're not alone. You know, it's the people who've shared their stories that help me not know that I'm not alone and have validated my experience and helped me make better choices moving forward. So, you know, hopefully there's something that you find here that helps. I wanted to talk about a certain mindset that kind of an approach to if you have autoimmune disease, or if you've just been like through something really traumatic, or are feeling very fragile, right, and at large. So in my story, I talked about, you know, there was many years of having Lyme disease. I've had it, can't remember if I just said this, but I've had it for about 22 years. So about 10 years in or so. I was very much just like a shell of a person. In my 20s, I felt like I was 80 for the most part. And I was doing my best to try to add pieces in that helped fortify and like rebuild my body back up. But it was a scary process, essentially. So I went from being on, you know, all the pharmaceuticals, pain medicine, and like Adderall to keep me awake, and pain medicine to help reduce the pain, and then antibiotics for Lyme disease, and it was just it didn't resonate with me. And as I was moving off of those things and was starting to work with herbs, I was also, you know, during this whole time, I was very much delving into my spiritual practices in many, many ways, whether it was like Reiki energy healing, or, you know, I've always loved crystals. If you know me from Haute Couture, I had a crystal jewelry company for a very long time. Always spending time in nature and just, you know, really just trying to find deeper connection in life, because it was just, life was I felt very much like a shell and didn't really have that purpose or vibrancy with life. So during this time, a friend of mine, a beautiful friend of mine who I hope to have on as well, Sally, told me about her friend who was doing a 6-week Kundalini course. And I found it really interesting. I hadn't started, like I hadn't really done anything. Like I had done yoga and a little bit of ballet bar and would go on walks and stuff, but really like physically, and I had been a martial artist growing up and an athlete and very, very, very active, and had not done that since I walked away from it, from Lyme disease. So I was very interested, but I was very intimidated because I definitely heard some like intimidating things about Kundalini, and I know that it's intense, and I decided to do it. So during it was a really, really cool, like, bunch of women that were there. It was a small group of us, and it felt just like a wonderful sacred space. And I was feeling so afraid of pushing that boundary. So I had very much lived in this bubble and created a bubble for myself, whether it was socially, relationship boundaries, all of those things, self-care and all of that, just to make sure I could function. And Kundalini was rubbing up against those, the pushing it. Like I kept coming up to the edge of feeling like this exhaustion that happens with Lyme disease when you push your body physically past a point. And I had not played with it because essentially anytime I would do that, if I went beyond that boundary, let's say if I did try to do something a little bit more physically exerting, I would end up, quote unquote, paying for it for the next 2 weeks. I would be pretty run down and out. So in one of the classes, we were doing a breathing exercise, and I kept getting really lightheaded, and I kept feeling like I was going to throw up. And I didn't know, I just didn't know what that meant for me if I passed out or if I threw up. I was like, maybe, I'm like, am I gonna pay for that for the next 2 weeks? I don't really know. I don't know that boundary. And the woman teaching had super Shakti goddess, strong, warrior goddess energy. And I hadn't been around anybody like that in a while, since training. And she, at the time I was kind of Meh. But I recognized in that moment it was really good. It was good on her in the intuitive sense. She basically was like, if you pass out, we'll pick you up. If you throw up, we'll clean up. Anyways, and just kept going on. And I was like, oh. And it was the first time that I had this remembrance of who I was, somebody who, when I trained, not rightly so. I definitely, was 17 to 20, whatever. Just I'll fight anybody, whatever. But I had that confidence, right? I had that sass, that strength of that warrior spirit that I hadn't had for so long. And she was kind of yeah, cool story. Anyways, we're moving on unless you have something actually serious going on. And in part of it, I went, so it's kind of, there's not a clear cut thing to it. It did really help me in that time, but there is a time to live in a bubble, and then there's a time to move out of that bubble. And that was my invitation to come out of the bubble. And I did push a little harder from there. And then I did remember my warrior spirit, and I did cultivate those things back. And so I think I just wanted to pass along that little story because sometimes, sometimes we need the opposite of the warrior spirit. We need that gentle, nurturing spirit to remind us okay, it's okay if you just step back right now and you allow yourself to be in a gentle space and you allow yourself to nurture and embrace that moss girl life, and that is what is needed there. And then other times, you need to remember that warrior spirit, I'm not fucking going down. And ultimately, that's how I generally feel. Ultimately, that spirit has been there with me the whole time, even though I couldn't hear her for a long time. But I love seeing that in us. It doesn't mean we need to function from that place all the time, but it is a part of us that helps us. If we cultivate it, if we call it back in, it helps us be able to rally, morale up, and live our lives, despite the things that are going on. It doesn't need to look, it doesn't need to look a certain way. You'll know what that warrior spirit, for me, it was just continuing. I was doing breathing exercises, and just worried about losing that control, basically. I didn't know what it was going to be like if I went on the other side of that. And she was like, it's not a big deal. And it was very helpful in that moment. So if you're in a situation where you're had I had something more serious going on besides just throwing up somewhere or something, I'm sure she would have had a different response. But, this is just an invitation to look at the things going on in your life right now, where maybe are you all right, no, I really do need this bubble. I really need this container of healing at this moment. I really need things to be a space that's very supportive. And then maybe are you in a space where you're okay, where can I push that edge a little bit and see where I can expand, even though it's very uncomfortable, scary, feels like loss of control, feels like the unknown. And you don't need to bust through. You can tiptoe through if you have to. I do it every day. But it works, right? So, just a little something to think about today, wherever you are. If you are enjoying these podcasts, please like and comment and subscribe, or any of those. I know that helps a lot. And really, I am just doing this to pass things along. Like I feel like there are many things that I care about that I want to pass along for people who live unconventional lives in particular. And then people, if you feel like you're in a more conventional life and you want to embrace that unconventional side, I hope you find some inspiration here as well. I think that we have so many opportunities to live lives that are, really truly profound and meaningful. And I will be sharing stories from people who live those kind of lives as well. And I'm just really, really honored to have you here on this journey. So until next time.
And the walls are falling down. It's the only home I've known. And the voices telling me, run away on your way. I think I'd rather go alone. I've been driving the same roads since I was only 17. But these roads, they don't mean nothing, nothing, nothing without a dream. I told myself I'd try again, that it wouldn't be the same. But here I am, still stuck in this town.